This is not a drill. This is not a drill. I repeat, we are under attack. Help! Help! I'm being attacked. Looks like these airplanes. Bob, look out!
Pearl Harbor is the site of a U.S. naval base in Hawaii. Lots of important U.S. battleships were held there. On December 7, 1941, Japan launched a surprise attack on the U.S. 2,000 miles from Japan mainland. This happened at approximately 8:10 a.m. To become the most powerful group in the Pacific, they had to use oil to make bombs and power ships. The oil embargo was a ban that the U.S. put on Japan's use of oil. Although they weren't supplying it, the U.S. was able to cut them off from using oil. Tension began to rise between these two countries years before this attack because Japan had been wanting to expand their territory. These tensions grew with the United States' power to cut off their oil supply. This was the main cause of why Japan attacked the U.S. With 2,400 tragedies and hundreds of ships and planes destroyed, this left many hardships for the U.S., along with bringing them into World War II, where they would battle Japan, Italy, and Germany.
Hey, this is Joanna Green. Welcome back to another Classroom. Today is February 27th, 1942. Today we have a special guest. He is a Pearl Harbor survivor from the attack on December 7th, 1941. He will tell us his story about being a sailor during this historic event. Thanks for joining us today, Sailor Frank.
Thank you so much for having me, Joanne. I'm so happy to be here and share my story with you all today.
As a sailor, what were your first thoughts when the first plane appeared?
I watched in fear as my neighbors frantically ran about the harbor. I overheard a radio man claiming that this was an enemy air raid on Pearl Harbor. This is no drill. Women grabbed their children and raced toward safe houses. I was frightened, along with the rest of my community.
How did the location of Pearl Harbor have an impact on the amount of damage caused by the attack?
Since Pearl Harbor, Hawaii is the location of a U.S. naval base, it was very tragic to hear at least 11 of the U.S. battleships were ruined. These ships included the U.S. Oklahoma and the USS Maryland. When the bombs fell on the water of the Pacific Ocean, it created ripples in the water. The ocean then got messy and poured onto the ships and coastline.
A naval base, navy base, or military port is a military base where warships and naval ships are docked when they have no mission at sea. Some people say that the U.S. was not wise in the way that they stored their ships. Do you agree with this statement?
Personally, I think it wasn't very bright for the U.S. to only have one naval base where they stored their cruise ships. It also wasn't the best idea to place them all right next to each other in a straight line like dominoes. Even though nobody ever imagined an attack quite like this, the U.S. somehow changed things to make us prepared for an attack just like this one in the future.
How did this attack affect the everyday life of a sailor on the naval base?
Me and some of my sailor guys were hiding in a nearby safe house during the attack. Once the battle was over, we emerged from our hiding spot and ran to sea. We longed in horror as we saw our entire lives being brought to ruins right before our eyes. It took us a while to feel useful again, for we couldn't do our jobs without the ships. Fortunately, they couldn't damage all the naval base's areas. They left our oil storage depot alone, as well as shipyards and repair shops. Due to the lack of damage in these areas, the U.S. was able to quickly build themselves back.
Thank you for your time. We'll see you soon on Classroom. Bye!
Great to see you all again, viewers of Classroom. Thanks for joining us on this lovely January 28th, 1942. Now, for our next guest, I would like to introduce the Honorable and Sagacious President of the United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Good evening, Wallace.
Good evening, President Franklin, and how are you doing? Thanks for joining me on Classroom.
Okay, but I'm indeed a little stressed about the situation at hand. After I signed the Executive Order 9066 this month, things have been chaotic. I have my men working day and night trying to get these camps together for the Japanese.
And why, Mr. President, did you choose to follow through with this?
I did this on the behalf of the fear of our country. Every single person of Japanese heritage could possibly pose a threat to our country. For instance, what if there are spies watching our every move and then reporting back to Japan?
So you did this for the safety of your country?
Forsooth.
How do you tell people they will be sent away, and do you know the exact count of people there?
Evacuation orders were posted in Japanese American communities, which gave them instruction on what to do now that I've signed the executive order.
Okay, that's good, because although it is frightening to think of all the things that Japan is capable of doing, we should still not just kick them to the curb. What are you going to call these camps?
Internment camps.
The definition of internment is a state of being confined as a prisoner, especially for political or military reasons, as evidenced by the situation at hand. And that's how FDR created the name.
Where will these camps be located, and how many will there be?
There are approximately 10 camps that will be located in remote areas of different western states. The camps are very spread out.
Thank you so much for joining us and informing us on these topics, President Roosevelt.
No, thank you, and God bless the United States of America.
75 years later.
Guten Tag.
Hello.
Shalom.
Konnichiwa. Pearl Harbor had an everlasting effect on the United States and Japan. This historical event will never be forgotten. After the war ended, Americans protested to keep the Japanese in the camps because they believed they were still a threat. They were not released immediately. In 1988, Congress attempted to apologize to every Japanese survivor who had been held captive in the camps by awarding them with $20,000 as an apology.
Exactly 2,403 Americans were killed. That is the approximate population of Worcester, Massachusetts. Only 1,143 people were wounded. Hospitals must have been crazy busy.
This attack had a huge effect on the United States economy and workforce. Japan destroyed approximately 20 U.S. ships, over 300 planes, and after all this damage, they failed to destroy the Pacific Fleet. All the captured Japanese people were taken to the multiple internment camps, most of whom lived in the Pacific coast. The total captured Japanese was 110,000 to 120,000, of which 62% were United States citizens.
Overall, researching this topic has made us realize how lucky we are to live in a country that now has so many ties with other nations. Now we have new and improved security systems and a stronger military to protect us from any harm to the U.S. and its citizens. Through researching this topic, we have a newfound appreciation for our ancestors who fought for our way of life.
Thank you for joining us today. Click the subscribe button down below.
Cheers to our freedom!